To start, I'm going to read the story that was sent in, word for word. It's important we all hear the situation just as it was shared. Here it is. I'm having trouble figuring out what to do and how to proceed. My current boyfriend, who is 28 years older than me, had a relationship with a woman who is much older than him, about 27 years apart, with whom they were together for 3 years, sometimes together, sometimes apart. As from what he told me, she also went to another man, told him that they were not in a relationship, and when my boyfriend wanted to end things, she came back and cried. And in the end, they only saw each other for sex, and she already has health problems, even though according to him and in photos, she doesn't look her age at all. We've been together for 3 months, and during that period, she called him twice. The first time was that they wanted to see each other in person, where it was she wanted to talk to him. Like the first time, I became a direct witness to how she wrote to him and called him, and in the end, I told him to talk on the phone. But not that I agreed to see each other, and they talked, but because he is a foreigner and I didn't understand what they were talking about so much. They're both Ukrainians. When I asked him to block her, he replied that there was no point and that she could faint and die at any moment, you see, because she had high blood pressure and had health problems, and I had nothing to worry about. After about a month and a half, she calls him again, which happened 2 nights ago at 000, to ask him to take money to some friend of hers for her electricity, since she was abroad and her electricity was going to be cut off and she couldn't make a transfer to her friend, and my boyfriend went and took the money yesterday. Apart from all this, he is a very well-mannered, good person, really good, even soft I would say. He doesn't have social networks and doesn't text other women, he is extremely caring and attentive, but he doesn't seem to understand that this is a problem. I really don't like all this, and I've told him, and he seems to really not understand and tries to justify things, and only finally last night he told me he's sorry. That's why. I'm thinking of breaking up with him, but I'm not sure yet. I really love him.
Okay. First, thank you so much for sharing something so deeply personal and, frankly, so difficult. Before we dive into any kind of analysis, I want to say one thing, and it's the most important thing. How you're feeling right now, the confusion, the hurt, the doubt, it is all completely and totally justified.
I really want you to hear this. You are not overreacting. You're not being paranoid or too jealous. What you've just described is a genuinely tough and painful situation. And your emotional response is actually a sign that you're in tune with reality. So let's hold that as our starting point, our ground truth, as we try to make sense of all this.
All right, so let's try to get some clarity. It's easy to get lost in that big cloud of, this just feels wrong. So let's break it down. What are the specific pieces of this puzzle that are making it so incredibly challenging? What's really going on here?
See, this is so much more than just a guy who's friends with his ex. What we're actually looking at is an emotionally unresolved connection. The contact isn't just happening, it's happening at all hours, like midnight. It's not just talk, it's spilling over into your real life with him literally acting as her courier. And maybe the biggest red flag of all is his flat-out refusal to set a simple, clear boundary when you've expressed your pain.
And that really gets to the heart of it, doesn't it? The problem here isn't his past relationship. The problem is that the past isn't in the past. For all intents and purposes, this ex-partner is an active, third person in your relationship, and she has open access to your boyfriend's time, his emotions, and his energy.
So why? Why is he doing this? Let's try for a moment to understand his perspective. And it's so important to remember this. Trying to understand why he's doing it is not the same thing as saying it's okay. An explanation is not an excuse.
You know, based on how you describe him, he doesn't sound like a bad guy. You call him soft, good, caring. This gives us a huge clue. His behavior probably isn't coming from a place of malice, but from a deeply ingrained and maybe misplaced sense of guilt and responsibility. It's very possible that their past dynamic trained him to feel like he's her caretaker, her only safety net.
And that intense feeling of obligation is often held in place by a very powerful psychological tool. It's called emotional blackmail. Basically, it's when someone uses your own good feelings, your guilt, your fear, your sense of duty, against you to get what they want.
In his own words, they just lay it all out there. This exact phrase, "she could faint and die at any moment," is a textbook example. That's not a rational assessment. It's a statement designed to trigger his guilt and fear, making it impossible for him to set a boundary because he's been made to feel responsible for her life. It is an incredibly powerful and damaging form of control.
So this leads us to the really hard question. What happens if this just continues? If nothing changes, where is this relationship headed? We have to be brutally honest about that.
Let's be real. This isn't something that's just going to fix itself. In all likelihood, it's going to become a constant, nagging source of anxiety for you. And worse, Over time, when someone keeps telling you that what you feel isn't a big deal, you start to doubt yourself. You start to wonder, am I crazy? And that's a terrible place to be. Eventually, even the deepest love can curdle into resentment when one person feels constantly disrespected and unprotected.
Okay, so before you make that final decision to stay or to go, there is one more thing you can do. It requires moving away from just telling him how you feel and moving towards establishing a clear, actionable boundary.
The most effective way to have this talk is to break it into 3 simple steps. First, you start with love. You affirm that you want this relationship. Second, you state the problem and how it impacts you. No blaming, just the facts of your feelings. And third, you state clearly what needs to happen for you to be able to stay. This isn't a threat, it's a clarification of what you need to feel secure.
So, it might sound something like this. Of course, you'll use your own words, but notice the structure. It's firm, but it comes from a place of love. It doesn't put him on the defensive. It's all about what you need, what you can and cannot live with in a partnership.
And now for the most critical part. After you have this conversation, his words don't matter as much anymore. An apology is nice, a promise is nice, but they're not the answer. The real answer, the real clarity you're looking for, will be in what he does next. His actions will tell you everything you need to know. You know, this whole situation really gets at a core truth about relationships that can be really hard to accept. We're taught to believe that if you love each other, that's all that matters. But sometimes, love just isn't enough.
Love needs a container to exist in. It needs a foundation of safety and security. It requires you to feel like a priority. Love can't survive if you're in a constant state of insecurity, or if your deepest needs are brushed aside, or if your partner's go-to response is, "I just don't understand." A real partnership needs both love and a mutual respect for each other's well-being.
And so, this all boils down to one final question. It shifts the focus from, do I love him enough, to something much more crucial for your own happiness. You can love him with all your heart. He might be a genuinely good person. But the real question you have to answer is this. Is the person you love actually ready and able to be in the kind of healthy, secure relationship that you truly need and deserve?